All right. Let's look at the first problem after we cross the Rubicon, and that is getting started. Just like I had a little problem here getting started. All right. So we just crossed the Rubicon, but now what you can often observe is that people don't just start acting. It seems then they're kind of stuck there. They don't know what to do. They fail to get started, etc. So, what are the common problems if you look at the literature? What can we see why people fail to get started? They fail to seize a good opportunity. So they might think like, oh, I just missed it. This is when I should have asked my boss to do this. Or they are in the middle of something, of a conversation when something comes up and they kind of miss the opportunity. So this is one win. Remembering to act is very similar to that. There's like often they kind of fail. Let's say you're at the dinner with friends and you're really you want to lose weight and you feel like, oh, you shouldn't order some kind of dessert, but then you're involved in a conversation. There's the waiter coming along and he's asking you anything for dessert, and all your friends get something, you just get something. You kind of forget. And you go, oh, why did I do that? Why did I just order that appetizing looking chocolate cake? And there's also this kind of, I think, what most of us kind of experience is initial reluctance, which is related to procrastination, that we just can't really get the going. We're kind of sitting there, and then we do a little here and a little there, and before we start writing, we look something up on the internet, and then an hour later, we feel like, oh, now I have to clean the room and so forth. There's an initial reluctance to get started. So what can we do? What does research say? And what if your participants in your intervention kind of feel like face these problems? Or how can you help them once they form the intervention to get going? Heckhausen and Gorwitzer have a very direct suggestion here. And they say, like, look, you're now if you just cross the Rubicon, your task is to do planning. So most of the problems in this phase can easily be addressed if you do really good planning in the right way. So one way to do that, which is not the Heckhausen-Gorwitzer recommended way, which we will talk about in a second, is to do mental simulations. So they're Fem and Taylor, they have this idea that we can basically, when we are doing the goal pursuit, we can mentally simulate two things. We can simulate the outcome. So me achieving a certain outcome, for instance, let's talk for once about students, and you're preparing for an exam, and you can say, then I will be in the exam room and I will feel super prepared, and then I will perform very well and will get a great outcome. All right. If you listen to the chapters before on non-positive fantasies, you might have an idea if this is very effective. Or you can simulate the process. You say, okay, tomorrow morning I will get up, and when I get up thereafter, I will have a cup of coffee, and then I will sit down at my computer, and then I will, in 25-minute chunks, using the Pomodoro technique, study each day for 2 hours. And that will help me. So you simulate, basically mentally envision the process. And, here's helpful. So outcome, I want you to visualize yourself meeting the production goals. I imagine how you would feel in your mind, form a picture of your team actually meeting the production goals. So this is just like how it is used in team frameworks. You kind of think about how could you use something where you're in a teamwork, guiding them to better performance, or you can basically visualize yourself performing your jobs in ways that would lead you to meet the production goals. In your mind, form a picture of your team actually acting in ways that would lead to you to meet the production goals, right? So you actually imagine performing these things. So if you look, this is a study with students. If you it's a little bit blurry, but here we have these two intervention conditions. We have one that is process and one that is outcome. So who studied more? You can see that on average, the process people studied 16 hours. If we kind of compare that to the control condition, that is about 2 hours more. Outcome condition studied exceptionally much less. Exam scores, maybe something you might be more interested. You can see people in the process simulation, they got 80, and you can see again this kind of devastating effect that has envisioning good things happening to you. So you compared to the control condition condition dramatically perform less. And you can see that basically if you're in a process condition, your marks are by 6.6 higher than the class average. So by giving, you just have to hope that you get into the right experiment and not accidentally, as a student, get to do some outcome manipulations as part of getting some course credits in your first year. That must suck a little bit. Well, never mind, that's not the topic. So here you can kind of see that simulating, planning out your action makes it much more likely that people start acting. So process simulations are a really good way to figure out how to. An even better way. Oh, one thing I want to say is one thing that's really good is it seems to reduce anxiety. And that's something that a lot of people experience when they get started. Their initial reluctance is basically a little anxiety, and a lot of people have trouble overcoming that. And process simulations is almost like a safe ground in your head to experiment and reduce that type of anxiety to get you going. The big kind of dog in the world of planning are implementation intentions. By now, you're probably very familiar with them. I think they're everywhere now. Even like at job centers, at any type of intervention, everybody uses implementation intentions. Implementation intentions are kind of plans that specify where, when, and how to execute the behavior. Okay. So the idea is that once you have to have a goal intention, but once you have a goal intention, which is like an intention, you can basically just cross this out. An intention is to say, I want to achieve goal X, but then you form implementation intentions. Like if situation Y arises, then I will initiate behavior Z. So if I get up in the morning, I will immediately start exercising or something like that. Okay. So you have a specific cue, often like when and where, and then you have specified this behavior. Okay, you can also use this to persuade others to do something. So let's say your friend is always late, right? And then you can kind of form with them an if-then plan. It may make it more likely that they come on time, or you want to help somebody else to do something that is in your interest. Then you can use implementation intentions. And once these people, they're a little bit willing to do it and they form the plan, they are much more likely to act on it. Implementation intentions are cure, almost a panacea to all self-control problems. Different implementation intentions can basically attack all of the problems that or have been shown to tackle basically all of the problems that are part of once on the right side of the Rubicon. Very powerful. So getting started, right, is you basically have this kind of format of if cue, then response. If the waiter offers me dessert at dinner tonight, then I will say, just an espresso, please. I can't drink an espresso at dinner, then I can't sleep, but that's a topic for a different presentation, okay? So you have a future goal-relevant situational cue, a good opportunity to act or when you want to act, and then you specify that on how you want to respond. So there are two kind of traps people avoid. So don't if behavior then outcome. So often if we see, because I studied with Peter Gollwitzer developed implementation intentions. And often if you kind of look at how people form these implementation intentions, then people say like if behavior then outcome. They would say something like, oh, if I study, then I will be successful. This is not an implementation intention. The outcome has nothing to do. Remember, we're on the right side of the Rubicon. We don't care about the outcome anymore. We just act. The other thing, which I kind of alluded a little bit further, like some people think like, I could say, if I get up in the morning, then I will put on my running shoes and get running because I want to get fit. But this is something that is basically from the other side of the Rubicon, right? You don't want to get back into the deliberate mindset. You want to stay in the implementer mindset. So these plans are less effective. Don't put whys in your plans, please. Okay. The mechanism, there are just two. I think the one that's most interesting here is kind of that basically the idea is like if you form these plans, then it's almost like an instant habit. You have a cue and there's an automatic of the activation of the response once that cue is encountered. Just like a habit, you see something, you automatically act. That's the idea behind implementation intentions, and there are literally dozens of studies who support this. There's also that implementation intention enhances your motivation to perform behavior, so it helps you to overcome procrastination. There's one that I kind of want to quickly mention too at the end of this is control level theory, right? Some of you might kind of know about control level theory, some might not. But basically the key idea of control level theory developed by Yakov Tropi at NYU is that you can construct any event on two different levels, on a specific one and on a more high level one. So you can think about eating healthy as something getting up in the morning and eating a bowl of porridge, or as something looking out for the right macros in your diet, right? And so if you have trouble starting, then it seems that you think about your behavior, your goal in two abstract ways. If you have trouble resisting temptations, then you might think of these temptations as too concretely. So higher level controls, and I show in a bit what that exactly means. Higher level controls basically stop you from behaving, and lower level controls help you to get going. So you could, for instance, say, if you're like something like here you see, so let's say I want to induce the feeling in you that you want to improve and maintain your health, and then I would just like in a control level theory, I would ask you how, and by doing this you get more and more concrete. That induces a mindset, like a more concrete mindset that helps you then to plan. But it's also, you can see it is really similar to making plans, right? There's a huge overlap between the different types of interventions I showed you. Let's say you want to kind of stop people from acting, right? This is like you basically send them back to deliberative and to deliberation by asking why, and by doing so, people often refrain from persisting temptations because they kind of stop acting and become somewhat not lazy, reluctant to act, I think is the right word. All right, that is it for this chapter.